In the medieval world, daily life unfolded slowly, shaped by the natural rhythms of light, weather, and the changing seasons. There was no urgency to move quickly, and no expectation of constant change. Instead, each day followed a familiar pattern, guided by simple needs and steady routines that repeated over time. Villages were often small and closely connected to the land around them. Fields stretched outward from clusters of homes, and narrow paths linked one place to another. The landscape was quiet, with open skies above and the soft presence of trees, water, and cultivated land forming a gentle backdrop to everyday life. People rose with the first light of morning, as the sun gradually brightened the horizon. Without artificial lighting, the beginning of the day was tied closely to the natural world. The sounds of early activity were subtle, including the movement of animals, the opening of doors, and the quiet preparation for the work ahead. Life was centered on meeting essential needs. Food was grown, gathered, and prepared with care. Tools were made and maintained by hand. Clothing was worn for long periods and repaired when needed. Each task was part of a continuous cycle, repeated not out of urgency, but as a natural part of living. The pace of life remained steady throughout the day. Work was carried out with patience, often in the same places and in the same ways as before. There was comfort in familiarity, and a sense of balance in the repetition of daily activities. As evening approached, the light began to fade, and activity gradually slowed. Without bright illumination, the day came to a natural close. People returned indoors, where firelight provided a soft glow against stone and wood surfaces. In this way, medieval daily life was shaped by continuity and quiet routine. It was a world defined not by rapid change, but by steady patterns that unfolded gently, day after day, within a calm and unhurried environment. A medieval village was shaped by practical needs and a close connection to the surrounding land. Its layout was not planned with strict design, but developed gradually over time. Guided by habit, convenience, and the natural features of the landscape, paths formed where people walked most often, and buildings were placed where the ground allowed. At the center of many villages, there was an open space used for gathering, simple trade, and shared activity. This area was not large or formal, but it provided a place where daily life could overlap. Nearby, a well or water source often served as an important focal point, drawing people together throughout the day. Homes were built close to one another, forming small clusters rather than spreading far apart. This closeness created a sense of quiet connection, where sounds and movements carried gently between buildings. The structures themselves followed the shape of the land, adapting to slight changes in elevation and terrain. Beyond the homes, cultivated fields extended outward in long strips. These fields were carefully maintained and divided in ways that reflected shared use. The boundaries were often simple, marked by narrow paths or subtle changes in the ground. Over time, these patterns became familiar and remained largely unchanged. Small outbuildings, such as barns and storage spaces, were placed near the edges of the village or beside individual homes. These structures supported daily work and were used for keeping tools, animals, or harvested crops. Their placement reflected routine rather than design, fitting naturally into the surrounding space. Trees, hedges, and natural features were often left in place, blending the built environment with the landscape. The village did not stand apart from nature, but existed within it, shaped by the same steady conditions. Light from the morning or evening would move slowly across the village, revealing textures of wood, stone, and earth. The overall scene remained calm, with no sharp edges or sudden contrasts. In this way, the layout of a medieval village reflected a quiet balance between human activity and the natural world, formed gradually through daily use and steady patterns of living. Homes in the medieval world were built using materials that were readily available in the surrounding area. Wood, stone, clay, and thatch were commonly used, each chosen for its practicality and ease of use. The construction process was steady and careful, often carried out by local craftsmen or by the people who would live in the house. The walls of many homes were made from timber frames filled with woven branches and coated in a mixture of clay and straw. In areas where stone was more abundant, thicker walls provided additional stability and insulation. The surfaces were simple and textured, reflecting the natural qualities of the materials. Roofs were often covered with thatch, made from layers of dried straw or reeds. These roofs sloped gently, allowing rain to fall away and protecting the interior from weather. Over time, the thatch would settle and change slightly in appearance, becoming part of the home's character. Inside, the space was usually modest and functional. A single main room often served multiple purposes, including cooking, eating, and resting. Furniture was limited, with wooden benches, simple tables, and storage chests placed where needed. Each item was used carefully and maintained over long periods. A central hearth provided warmth and a place for preparing food. The fire burned steadily, its light soft and flickering against the walls. Smoke would rise slowly, sometimes escaping through a small opening in the roof or through gaps in the structure. The air carried the faint scent of wood and earth. Light entered through small windows or doorways, creating gentle patterns across the interior. The brightness changed throughout the day, shifting slowly as the sun moved across the sky. There were no sudden changes, only a gradual transition from light to shadow. The interior of a medieval home was quiet and steady, shaped by daily use rather than decoration. Every element had a purpose, and each space reflected the rhythm of everyday life. In this way, medieval homes provided simple shelter, built with care and used in a calm and continuous manner over time. The beginning of a day in the medieval world was guided by the gradual arrival of light. As the sky brightened, the village stirred quietly, with activity emerging in a slow and natural way. There were no sudden starts, only a gentle transition from rest to movement as people adjusted to the morning. Inside homes, the first tasks were simple and familiar. The hearth, which may have burned low through the night, was tended carefully to bring warmth back into the space. Small flames were encouraged with dry wood, and the soft glow of firelight began to fill the room once again. This steady process marked the start of daily activity. People moved calmly through their routines, preparing for the work ahead. Clothing was put on layer by layer, chosen for practicality and comfort. Tools were gathered, often kept close at hand from the previous day. Each action followed a pattern that required little thought, shaped by repetition over time. Outside, the environment remained quiet in the early hours. Light spread slowly across the fields, revealing the shapes of buildings, paths, and open land. The air was often still, carrying only faint sounds such as footsteps on earth or the distant movement of animals. Water was collected early in the day, often from a shared well or nearby stream. This task was carried out with care, using simple containers that were filled and carried back to the home. The process was steady and unhurried, forming part of the daily rhythm. Food preparation also began during this time. Basic meals were arranged using ingredients that were readily available. The work was practical and consistent, with each step following a familiar order. As the morning continued, the pace of activity increased slightly, though it remained calm and measured. People began to move toward their tasks, whether in the fields, workshops, or around the village. In this way, the start of the day in medieval life unfolded gently, guided by natural light and steady routines that provided structure without urgency. Work in the fields formed a central part of daily life for many people in the medieval world. The land was tended carefully, with each task carried out in a steady and repeated manner. There was no need for speed, as the work followed the natural pace of growth and the changing seasons. Fields were often divided into long, narrow strips, each cultivated by different families or groups. These strips stretched outward from the village, creating a patterned landscape that remained familiar over time. The soil was turned using simple tools, such as wooden plows and handheld implements, guided with care across the earth. The work itself was quiet and methodical. Seeds were planted in measured rows, spaced evenly to allow for growth. As crops developed, they were watched closely, with attention given to the condition of the soil and the movement of water. There were no sudden changes, only gradual progress as plants grew over time. Animals often played a role in this work. Oxen, moving slowly and steadily, helped to pull plows across the fields. Their pace was consistent, setting a rhythm that guided the work around them. The interaction between people and animals was calm and cooperative, shaped by routine and familiarity. The sounds of the fields were soft and continuous. The movement of tools through soil, the quiet steps of animals, and the gentle motion of wind across crops created a steady background. There was no urgency, only a sense of ongoing activity that filled the day. Light shifted gradually as the sun moved across the sky. Shadows lengthened and shortened, marking the passage of time without the need for clocks. Work continued as long as light allowed, following the natural rhythm of the day. Breaks were taken when needed, often in the shade or at the edge of the field. These moments were quiet, allowing for rest before work resumed. In this way, farming in the medieval world was a continuous and balanced process, guided by patience, repetition, and a close connection to the land. Food preparation in the medieval world was a steady and familiar process, shaped by what was available from the land and the season. Meals were simple, made from ingredients that were grown nearby or gathered over time. The work of preparing food was carried out with care, following patterns that remained consistent from day to day. Inside the home, the hearth served as the center of cooking. A small fire burned steadily, providing both warmth and a place to prepare meals. Pots were placed over the flames or suspended above them, allowing food to cook slowly. The pace of cooking was unhurried, with ingredients added gradually as needed. Grains formed a large part of the daily diet. These were often ground into flour using simple tools, then used to make bread or porridge. The process required time and steady effort, from grinding to mixing and finally baking. Bread, once prepared, was used throughout the day, forming a reliable part of each meal. Vegetables were prepared in a similar way, washed and cut by hand before being placed into cooking pots. Herbs and simple seasonings were added carefully, enhancing flavor without overwhelming it. The scents that rose from the hearth were soft and earthy, blending with the warmth of the fire. Meals were often shared among those living in the same household. People gathered around simple tables or benches, eating slowly and without hurry. There was little noise beyond the quiet sounds of movement and conversation, creating a calm and steady atmosphere. Utensils were basic and used repeatedly over long periods. Bowls, wooden spoons, and simple knives were kept close and maintained with care. Nothing was wasted, and each item had a clear purpose. The preparation of food was not a separate activity, but part of the rhythm of the day. It fit naturally between other tasks, continuing in the background as life moved forward. In this way, meals in the medieval world were shaped by patience and simplicity, prepared with steady attention and shared in a quiet and balanced manner. Clothing in the medieval world was made with care, using materials that were available from the surrounding environment. Each garment was shaped by practicality, designed to provide warmth, protection, and durability over long periods of use. The process of creating clothing was steady and detailed, often carried out within the home or by skilled artisans. Wool was one of the most common materials, gathered from sheep and prepared through a series of careful steps. The fibers were cleaned, spun into thread, and then woven into fabric using simple looms. This work required patience and consistency, with each stage building upon the last in a gradual and measured way. Linen was also used, made from the fibers of flax plants. It provided a lighter fabric, often worn closer to the skin. Like wool, its production involved several stages, each completed with attention to detail. The materials themselves reflected the rhythm of the land, tied closely to seasonal cycles of growth and harvest. Garments were simple in shape, often loose and layered. Tunics, cloaks, and basic coverings allowed for movement while offering protection from the weather. Colors were usually soft and muted, influenced by natural dyes derived from plants and minerals. Over time, these colors would fade gently, becoming part of the garment's character. Clothing was not replaced often. Instead, it was repaired and adjusted as needed. Small tears were stitched carefully, and worn areas were reinforced to extend the life of the fabric. This ongoing maintenance was part of daily life, carried out quietly alongside other tasks. The textures of clothing were varied but subtle. Rougher outer layers contrasted with softer inner fabrics, creating a balance between comfort and durability. The feel of these materials was familiar, shaped by repeated use. Light falling on these fabrics revealed gentle folds and natural movement. As people worked and moved through their day, their clothing shifted softly, following their actions without drawing attention. In this way, medieval clothing reflected a steady approach to living, created and maintained through patience, practicality, and a close connection to available materials. Water was an essential part of daily life in the medieval world, gathered and used with steady care. It was not available at the turn of a handle, but collected from wells, streams, or nearby springs. This task formed a regular part of the day, repeated with quiet consistency. In many villages, a central well served as the main source of water. It was often located in a shared space, easily reached by those who needed it. The well itself was simple in structure, lined with stone and fitted with a bucket and rope. Over time, its edges became smooth from frequent use. People approached the well at different times of day, carrying wooden buckets or clay containers. The process of drawing water was slow and steady. The rope was lowered carefully, the bucket filled, and then lifted again with controlled effort. Each movement followed a familiar rhythm, shaped by repetition. Streams and rivers also provided water, especially in areas where wells were less common. Paths leading to these sources were worn gently into the ground, marking the steady passage of footsteps over time. The sound of flowing water added a quiet presence to the environment. Once collected, water was carried back to the home and used for many purposes. It was needed for cooking, cleaning, and tending to animals. Each use was measured, ensuring that nothing was wasted. The effort required to gather water encouraged careful and thoughtful use. The surfaces around wells and streams often showed subtle signs of activity. Stones were damp and smooth, and the ground nearby was gently worn. These details reflected the steady importance of water in daily life. Light played softly across these areas, catching the surface of the water and the texture of surrounding materials. Reflections were gentle and shifting, adding to the calm atmosphere. In this way, the collection and use of water formed a quiet and essential rhythm, woven into the flow of each day in the medieval world. In the medieval world, skilled crafts were practiced with patience and steady attention. Artisans worked within small workshops or simple outdoor spaces, creating tools and objects that supported daily life. Their work followed familiar patterns, shaped by repetition and a deep understanding of materials. Blacksmiths, for example, shaped metal using heat and controlled force. Inside a modest workshop, a fire burned steadily within a forge, providing the heat needed to soften iron. The metal was then placed on an anvil and shaped with measured strikes of a hammer. Each movement was deliberate, guided by experience rather than speed. Carpenters worked with wood, crafting items such as tools, furniture, and building components. They used hand tools to cut, shape, and smooth surfaces, working slowly to achieve the desired form. The grain of the wood guided their actions, and each piece was adjusted with care. Weavers and textile workers continued the process of turning fibers into usable fabric. Their looms moved in a steady rhythm, with threads crossing and tightening to form cloth. The work required focus and consistency, with each row building upon the last. These crafts were often carried out close to home, allowing the sounds of work to blend into the daily life of the village. The tapping of a hammer, the movement of a loom, and the soft scraping of tools created a quiet background of activity. Materials were used carefully, with little waste. Metal, wood, and cloth were all valued, and each piece was shaped with intention. Finished items were not only functional, but built to last over long periods of use. Light entering these spaces revealed textures and movement in a gentle way. The glow of a forge, the soft daylight on wood, and the shifting threads of fabric all contributed to a calm and focused environment. In this way, skilled work in the medieval world was carried out through steady effort and quiet concentration, forming an essential part of daily life. In medieval villages and towns, small markets provided a place for the exchange of goods, carried out in a steady and familiar manner. These gatherings were not large or hurried, but unfolded slowly, often at regular intervals. People arrived with items they had grown, made, or collected, bringing them together in a shared space. Market areas were usually simple, set in open sections of the village or near a central path. There were no permanent structures for most traders, only tables, cloths spread on the ground, or wooden stands displaying goods. The arrangement changed slightly each time, shaped by those who came to take part. Goods were modest and practical. Baskets of vegetables, loaves of bread, lengths of cloth, and small crafted tools were placed carefully for others to see. Each item reflected the work of the person who brought it, showing signs of careful preparation and use of available materials. The exchange of goods was calm and measured. There was no urgency, only a quiet process of offering and receiving. Conversations were soft and unhurried, often carried out face to face. People took time to look at items, consider their value, and complete each exchange with care. Movement within the market was steady. Individuals walked slowly between stalls, pausing where needed. There was space between groups, allowing the environment to remain open and uncluttered. The overall atmosphere remained balanced, without crowding or noise. The sounds of the market were gentle and consistent. Voices remained low, blending with the soft movements of people and the handling of goods. There were no sudden changes, only a continuous flow of quiet activity. Light shifted across the open space as the day progressed, illuminating different areas in turn. Textures of cloth, wood, and food were revealed in soft detail, without strong contrast. In this way, markets in the medieval world served as calm places of exchange, where goods and interactions moved at a steady and unhurried pace. Religious life formed a steady and familiar part of daily experience in the medieval world. The local church was often a central feature of the village, both in its physical presence and in the quiet routines that surrounded it. Built from stone and set slightly apart or near the center, it stood with a sense of permanence within the landscape. The structure itself was simple yet carefully constructed. Thick stone walls provided stability, while narrow windows allowed soft light to enter the interior. The roof, often made of wood and tile or thatch, sheltered the space beneath, creating a quiet and enclosed environment. Inside, the atmosphere was calm and still. Light filtered through small openings, falling gently across stone floors and wooden benches. The air carried a faint sense of coolness, and sounds were softened by the enclosed space. Every element contributed to a sense of quiet reflection. People visited the church regularly, following patterns that remained consistent over time. These visits were not hurried. Individuals entered, moved slowly within the space, and took part in simple, repeated practices. The rhythm of these actions became familiar, blending into the broader flow of daily life. The church also marked the passage of time in subtle ways. Bells, when present, were rung at certain moments, their sound carrying softly across the village. This sound did not interrupt, but gently signaled transitions within the day. Outside, the area surrounding the church remained open and calm. Paths led toward it from different directions, worn smooth by steady use. Trees or small open spaces nearby added to the quiet setting, creating a place where movement slowed naturally. Light changed gradually throughout the day, shifting across the stone surfaces and casting soft shadows. These changes were gentle, reflecting the steady passage of time. In this way, religious life in the medieval world was not separate from daily routines, but woven into them, providing a consistent and calming presence within the rhythm of village life. Life in the medieval world was shaped by the steady passage of the seasons. Each part of the year brought gradual changes that influenced daily routines, guiding work, movement, and the use of resources. These changes were not sudden, but unfolded slowly, allowing people to adjust their activities in a natural and familiar way. In the early part of the year, the land began to soften after colder conditions. Fields were prepared carefully, with soil turned and arranged for planting. This work was done with patience, following patterns that had been used over many years. The air remained cool, and light increased gradually as the days lengthened. As time moved forward, growth became more visible. Crops developed slowly, and the landscape took on a fuller appearance. Daily work continued in the fields, with attention given to maintaining healthy growth. There was no rush, only a steady process of care and observation. Later in the year, the focus shifted toward gathering what had been grown. Harvesting was carried out with the same calm approach, with crops collected and stored for future use. This work required coordination, but remained unhurried, guided by the readiness of the plants rather than strict timing. During colder periods, activity moved closer to the home. Outdoor work became less frequent, and more time was spent on indoor tasks such as repairing tools or preparing materials. The environment became quieter, with shorter days and longer periods of rest. Throughout these changes, the overall rhythm of life remained balanced. Each season brought its own tasks, but none disrupted the steady flow of daily routines. Instead, they formed a continuous cycle, repeating over time with small variations. Light, temperature, and the condition of the land all shifted gradually, creating a sense of continuity rather than change. These elements worked together to guide daily life in a calm and predictable way. In this manner, the seasons provided a gentle structure for medieval living, shaping each day through slow and natural transitions. Movement between places in the medieval world was slow and steady, shaped by the natural landscape and the limitations of available transport. Travel was not frequent, and when it occurred, it followed familiar paths that had been formed over time through repeated use. These routes connected villages, fields, and nearby towns, creating a quiet network of movement across the land. Paths were often simple dirt tracks, worn gently into the ground by footsteps, carts, and animals. They curved around natural features such as trees, streams, and uneven terrain, adapting to the shape of the land rather than altering it. Over time, these routes became well known, guiding travelers in a calm and predictable way. Walking was the most common form of travel. People moved at a measured pace, carrying what they needed or leading animals alongside them. The journey itself was not rushed, but integrated into the rhythm of daily life. Distances were understood in terms of time and effort rather than precise measurement. Carts, pulled by oxen or horses, were used when heavier goods needed to be transported. These moved slowly along the same paths, their steady motion matching the pace of those who walked beside them. The sound of wheels on earth and the soft movement of animals added to the quiet atmosphere of travel. The environment along these routes remained open and calm. Fields, hedges, and small clusters of trees lined the paths, creating a landscape that changed gradually as one moved through it. There were no abrupt transitions, only a continuous unfolding of familiar scenery. Light shifted across the land as the day progressed, guiding the timing of travel. Journeys were often planned to take place during daylight hours, allowing for safe and steady movement. In this way, travel in the medieval world was not defined by speed, but by consistency and familiarity. It formed a quiet extension of daily life, connecting places through slow and deliberate movement across the landscape. As the day gradually moved toward evening, activity in the medieval world began to slow in a natural and gentle way. The light softened as the sun lowered in the sky, and the pace of work eased without any sudden change. Tasks that had filled the daylight hours were brought to a quiet close, guided simply by the fading light. People returned from the fields, workshops, and paths, moving back toward their homes at a steady and unhurried pace. Tools were set aside carefully, often placed in the same locations where they would be found again the next day. There was a sense of completion, not marked by any signal, but by the gradual end of visible work. Inside the home, attention shifted towards simple indoor activities. The hearth was tended once more, and a small fire was encouraged to provide warmth and light. The glow of the fire created a soft and steady illumination, reflecting gently against wooden surfaces and earthen floors. Meals were prepared and shared in a calm atmosphere. The process was familiar, with each step carried out without urgency. People gathered together, sitting on benches or around simple tables, eating slowly and quietly. The sounds within the space remained soft, blending with the steady crackle of the fire. After the meal, time was often spent in small, quiet tasks. Clothing might be repaired, tools adjusted, or materials prepared for future use. These activities required focus, but were carried out in a relaxed and steady manner. The outside world grew darker as the light continued to fade. Through small windows or open doorways, the last light of day could be seen, gradually giving way to evening shadow. There were no bright sources of illumination beyond the fire, and the transition into night was smooth and continuous. In this way, evening in the medieval world was not a separate event, but a gentle continuation of the day, moving naturally toward rest within a calm and quiet environment. Night in the medieval world arrived gradually, without interruption or sudden change. As the last light faded from the sky, the landscape settled into stillness. Without artificial illumination, darkness became a natural part of the daily rhythm, shaping how people rested and moved within their surroundings. Inside the home, the hearth provided a final source of light. Its glow was soft and limited, casting gentle shadows that moved slowly across walls and ceilings. As the fire burned lower, the space became quieter, and activity reduced even further. People prepared for rest in a calm and familiar way, following routines that required little thought. Sleeping arrangements were simple. Beds were often made from wooden frames or basic supports, layered with straw, cloth, or wool for comfort. These materials were arranged carefully, creating a place of rest that was modest but sufficient. Over time, these spaces became familiar and reassuring. The sounds of the night were subtle and steady. Outside, the movement of wind through trees or across open land created a soft and continuous background. Occasionally, the distant presence of animals could be heard, but these sounds remained gentle and unobtrusive. Within the home, movement slowed to near stillness. Conversations faded, and the quiet presence of others became part of the environment. The absence of strong light allowed the mind to settle, guided by the natural conditions of the night. Time passed without clear markers, as darkness removed the visual cues that shaped the day. Rest came gradually, without urgency. As the body adjusted to the quiet and low light, the air inside the home remained warm near the hearth and cooler in the surrounding space, creating a gentle contrast that added to the sense of calm. In this way, nighttime in the medieval world was not separate from daily life, but a continuation of it, offering rest and stillness within a quiet and steady environment. Across the medieval world, daily life unfolded through patterns that remained steady over long periods of time. Each day followed a familiar course, shaped by light, land, and the quiet repetition of essential tasks. There was little need for change, as the rhythm of life provided a natural sense of balance. Homes, fields, paths, and shared spaces all played a part in this continuous flow. Each place was used in a consistent way, guided by habit and practical need. Over time, these patterns became deeply familiar, allowing life to move forward without interruption or uncertainty. The work carried out each day was simple in purpose, yet meaningful in its consistency. Tasks were repeated not out of obligation alone, but as part of a broader rhythm that connected people to their surroundings. The land provided resources, and in return, it was cared for with steady attention. Light marked the passage of time, moving gradually from morning brightness to evening shadow. There were no abrupt transitions, only a continuous shift that guided activity and rest. This natural progression created a sense of calm order, allowing each part of the day to follow the next without urgency. Within homes, the glow of the hearth and the quiet presence of shared space offered comfort and stability. Outside, the open landscape remained unchanged, shaped only slowly by the work carried out upon it. The environment and daily life existed together, each influencing the other in a balanced way. Over many years, these patterns continued with only small adjustments. Buildings were repaired, tools were maintained, and routines were passed from one generation to the next. Change, when it occurred, was gradual and almost unnoticeable. In this way, medieval daily life can be understood as a steady and continuous experience, shaped by repetition, familiarity, and a close connection to the natural world. The rhythm of this life moved quietly, without urgency, offering a sense of stability that remained constant across time.